Okay.
Okay.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
everyone.
everyone.
I
I
think we
think
are
we are
live
live
and
and
we
we
started
started
streaming.
streaming.
Welcome to
Welcome to
the
the
second
second
lecture
lecture
for
for
the
the
web
web
security.
security.
We
We
went
went
over
over
the
the
introduction of
introduction of
what the
what
web
the web
security and the
security and the
application is
application
in
is
our
in our
last
last
lecture.
lecture.
So we
So
will
we will
continue
continue
uh,
the
the lecture
lecture
on
on
the
the
web
web
security
security
application
application
from our
from our
last
last
lecture.
lecture.
Um, and
And
thanks
thanks
to
to
Connor
Connor
and
and
Adam
Adam
for their
for their
slides,
slides,
for
for
using these
using these
slides
slides
that's there
that
in our
in our
Pan
Pond
College
College
developed
developed
by
by
Adam
Adam
and
and
Connor.
Connor.
Um,
Um,
we
we
saw with the
saw with the
introduction that
introduction that
basically
basically
the
the
web-based
web-based
security
security
application that
application
we
that we
started
started
from
from
the
the
last
last
lecture
lecture
would
would
have
have
the
the
client
client
um, server
server
architecture.
architecture.
Uh,
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
so
the
the
client
client
server
server
based
based
architecture
architecture
in which
in
there
which
would
there would
be
be
the
the
program
program
or
or
our
our
system would
system
be
would be
running in a
running in a
remote
remote
location
location,
and
and
the
the
user
user
would
would
be
be
interacting with
interacting with
the
the
server
server
using the
using the
HTTP
HTTP
based
based
request.
request.
Um,
Um,
since
Seems
there is
there
a
is a
lot of
lot of
echo,
echo.
should
Should
we
we
switch off
switch off
the
the?
um,
Um,
since
seems
echo?
echo. Got it.
Okay, I
Okay, I
think
think
it
it
should
should
work
work
now.
now.
Can
Can
someone
someone
confirm that
confirm that
it's
it's
been
been
good
good
now,
now,
the
the
audio
audio
quality?
quality?
Since I
Since I
have
have
unmuted
unmuted
the
the
system
system
one,
one,
can
can
someone
someone
same?
same?
I mean, is it
Is
good
it good
now?
now?
Same. I
I
can
can
do
do
a
a
mute
mute
here
here
probably.
probably. Is it good now? Uh, can someone confirm turn off the volume on speakers? Yes, I have muted from the here also. Should be muted now.
How about this now?
How about this now?
Better.
Better? Okay, okay. So we can go with that. Thanks, Ajay. Okay, yeah. Uh, so uh, we we went over about the architecture of the web-based applications in which we have the client and the web server and the interaction with the remote location based services would happen over HTTP based requests. So application protocol uh, and we went over the typical uh, uh, the stack that typically are for almost all the things that would happen for the web-based application, which we saw as a LAMP-based stack, usually with Linux-based OS, MySQL-based database to make the persistence for the application. So without, as I mentioned, HTTP is a stateless protocol to make the application for the persistent to uh, we need a database. So the server will be having a database. Usually, the MySQL in the case of the LAMP stack, or it can be replaced with any other kind of database. Um, and an Apache server and a scripting language in the server side, usually PHP or modern Node.js based scripting side to manage the server side application, And in the client side, the browser would be the agent to receive and display the HTML documents received from the server. And we use scripting languages, uh, scripting engine from the browser to display the information. So this dynamicity being managed from the server side, uh, and for the client side we will use the scripting languages, and the script engine creates a lot of potential vulnerabilities and issues that we will go over. Specifically, like, we will see cross site scripting, uh, upon which there would be more than around 5 or 6 challenges that we will go through. And on the server side, we'll have the attacks over like a command. So since this is the client and server based architecture, the attacks can happen over the server side or from the client side. And typically in the server side, we will have the injection type of attacks that are OS based, called command injection or SQL based injections. Um, so we'll just, as a just a brief of, we can quickly go over the thing. So we went over the web application basically upon the dynamic creation of the content and managing of the user actions using HTTP, and then the content would be based upon the markup language HTML, and it's a live standard after the file. And we went over the HTML uh, languages basic syntaxes that we can use for the cross-site scripting attacks and other thing. So we went over the HTML basic elements of the HTML. It's a hierarchical tag-based markup language. Um, we have a header and the body with the elements such as paragraph and elements to place uh, the content that would be read by the browser. Even though you can go with the sophistication of the display with the CSS and other kind of things, the basic elements would be the markup the other than the style sheet, the basic elements would be the HTML with the markup using tags. And then we have the hyperlink. So this web-based application is the capability to um, uh, link over the web of all the documents, make a reference or link in your own document, and able to visit over the multiple sites from your documents, your web-linked documents. And we use the anchor H reference in our documents. That's how we link with other sites, third-party sites, from your documents. As an example here, we see HTML5 based document here in which the anchor is example.com. And then we went over the character references. So we the tags like lesser than or greater than, or for the script, and the ampersand characters, or are the special characters that give meanings for the markup languages. And if we have to display these characters, we use these encodings, the syntax for those things, the encoding for the uh, special characters of the HTML would start with ampersand, and then the decimal Unicode, ending with semicolon. It can be the hexa code of the Unicode can also be used. Just you have to prepend it with the X. And this is significant in some of in challenges in which there would there might be vulnerabilities in the server part in which they expect input from the users but may not sanitize the input well such that the script get executed with the which we can manipulate using character encodings. So, for example, here we see the ampersand symbol that can be displayed using the ampersand AMP, or else the Unicode uh, Unicode of 38 ampersand hash with a semicolon ending, or else in the hexacode of x26, 26 being the hexadecimal number of 38, or else prepended with 3 zeros. The another acute E. And we just went about the potentiality of being in the web app in which every document of yours is being linked to every other document, and the potentiality of the impact of the attack being connected, as with an example of robbing a bank in which you can fish the user to visit your site, and then with the user being already authenticated, you can make him to visit the bank from your uh, source or document that can automatically trigger the request. So we mentioned about the two sides in which the attack can happen, from the server side and from the client side. So we went over the HTML in the sense like the HTML document will have the scripting, and if the user is able to inject a script in the client side, it's a client side type of attack that can happen that make it vulnerable to the application of losing the data and other kind of stuff. The attack can also be on the server side, which we went over. In the last side, since it has to, HTTP is a stateless protocol and we have to use a database, we can attack is by manipulating the query language being used for the database administration, and either able to retrieve some data, or that's one kind of thing that we can do with the database. There's another kind of like a second order kind of attack for the SQL query in which you can store the payload, and then the payload can get executed upon later point of time. That's we call second order attack. In the last lecture, we went over the similar to the one that we saw for the scripting languages for the client side using HTML. We saw SQL being the query language for the database administration for retrieving the data. And we saw the simple queries that we can make use of, like the select queries. An example here, the select columns from the table with where conditions. So if the conditions evaluate to be true, it will filter only those rows or records that evaluate to be true, that we specify it through where conditions. And you can, so, and while seeing the, so you can delete the table. So using the delete command, you can imagine what would happen if an attacker is able to manipulate the database with full control and make a delete command and delete the tables. You can update the specific record and the table using the set and update query command. And the next one we saw about the union. The union command provides the capability to retrieve more than one columns and provides the powerful opportunity to make many attacks possible because of the union command. So this is one of the important thing that we have to look into it. One of the important aspect of here is that so you can union two select statements here, like is shown in the slides here. He's selecting the username and also the password. This to retrieve the result, the union and password should be of the same data type. If it is of different one, we will get error. So that's one aspect that we have to pay attention to. And if there is also the schema from which you can get to know about the table, basically in your challenges, you have to look for the structure of the database being employed at the server side and the schema being employed. This is one of the schema that you can use. This will differ for each database, but essentially the same of retrieving specific schema and the table name for the database, for the specific schema for the database. Drop table. And we looked over the MDNM. So the good resources that would be helpful to know about the kind of the attacks and also about the scripting and for the HTTP protocol, the Mozilla's developer network would be the good site. And for the specific kind of attacks, we can use the OWASP. It's very detailed and a good resource to go over the type of attacks that we can use it for our challenges also. So these are some of the previous one that we went over previously. So we went over all the basics of the web applications, the HTML, and also the query language. We can move over the main topics from now onwards, which is the injection attacks. I think I mentioned in the last lecture that injection is the top third in 2021 top 10 attacks as per the OWASP. Almost all of the attacks would be of the injection type in which you are able to inject, you are able to get a control over the servers of the client, make it to do the specific action that makes it possible using the input that expected from the user. So, if the input that are expected from the user contains the code that is malicious, you have this kind of the attacks in which the malicious things happens. Basically, everything happens by injecting the malicious code into the user input, in the input expected from the user, and the code can have the OS commands or SQL commands or the scripts. So the OS command and the SQL would be constituting the server type of attacks. If the basic sanitation has not been carried out, and if the attacker is able to make the user to input the code as a part of the input, we have this command type of injection. So as you can see here, we use command, for example, for type of any specific kind of application that we need. So, for example, here the web application may require to display the date, and it can use the system date um, console application. It can be done by calling the system or exeve, which spans a process with a date as seen in the third line. It can spun the process of the date directly, or you can call the shell command and then pass on the application like we see here. So it's spanning the shell and then pass on the application of date and see as the parameters. Why it has to call on the shell? Shell provides the flexibility, and so as the context here, the application is trying to use the shell, and this provides also the opportunity to inject codes uh, if it's not properly sanitized. So, for example, here the command uh, it tries to get the date by executing the process date console application, and you can also pass the parameters. For example, if you want specific time zone for the date and the time, you can pass UTC or MST. If UTC is passed, it 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 passes on it passes the UTC to the application, and you can see that the display that being delivered as a part of the HTML contains the UTC time zone. Now you can modify it to MST. So now it displays MST. Now what happens if the input is different? Instead of the time zone, if the user inputs who am I, the who am I would get displayed here as a part of the application. So it would be sent as the part of the command parameters for the data application. So for example, here you can also combine together using the semicolon. So if the semicolons, you can change the commands. The semicolon is used to combine together two different commands and executing in sequentially. So if a user in his field of entering the input, if semicolon and who am I is entered, the who am I would get executed, and you can see here the root is being displayed, being the root user here. So so the who am I command gets executed as a chain of commands and being displayed as part of the output here in the display, in which the time is expected to display, the hash being the command type. And you can also use the backtick. Anyone know what the backtick is about in the command, shell command? So the backtick enables you. The backtick, we call it as a substitution. In the command prompt, we will have the backtick will be enabled as a substitution, and it will be get executed first, and that will be provided as the arguments here. So, for example, in the time zone here, who am I and the date, the backtick who you supply the substitution thing, who am I, within the backtick for the date. So the who am I will get executed first, and then the root will be supplied as the argument to the date command. So we can use this capability, and then if we know that a particular web application uses without the sanitation of directly employing the user input as a part of the command for passing on to the OS. We can use them to use to get into the we can get into using the um, escalator privilege method and get to know about all the contents from the server. So it it opens a potential risk which we will also employ in our challenges. So, what do you think if I supply here for who am I? For example, cat slash etc. password. Usually, the password would be stored in the etc. folder of the password, etc. folder of the password, or the shadow folder, etc. From the root etc. folder of shadow that stores the encoded passwords. It will get executed first, and then the potential password important data would be uh, revealed to the attacker. Any questions so far? Slides. So I saw that slides being cut off. Is it good now? I think so. We can go over the. We can go over. So the the pa- the challenges for this module contains both the voice command that we are currently viewing, and also about the path traversal vulnerability and the SQL. So we can go over some of the challenges. Any questions so far? Yeah, so the agenda for today would be we'll go over the voice command injection and the SQL injection, and we'll go over some of the possibly some of the challenges as a as a thing of working in live about the concepts that we learned, and then see how it applies here. So we have 14 challenges. We see, and it's closed by in 8 days. Possibly next, it's in next Tuesday. So the first challenge is about the path traversal vulnerability, which you haven't gone over it. But do you, uh, if if you haven't gone over it, do you think what would be the path traversal vulnerability mentioned here? So so the web application is the LAMP based application that shows here. So for example, in the Pan College, this would be the uh, root location for the web application. Uh, this could be the path. So the path traversal vulnerability is the ability to go over the um, um, root folder and to the specific location and make it to execute and access the file and folders over the root on the uh, above the root of the web application root. So the standard definition would be So you can refer to OWASP, in which, as I mentioned, this is the one group, non-profit uh, foundation that provides the top 10 uh, attacks for every 4 years. So you will kind of important or useful information about the attacks also from here. So you can see here the standard definition for the path traversals. It, 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 it has already also has the other name like a dot slash or dot traversal. That means you would be in you would be in a location. For example, this would be the location for the web application, and if you use start dot slash to the upper location as you use for your shell command, you can go to the root folder and then able to retrieve all the important files and information stored at the root folder. So that's why it has the other name also called dot slash sequences. And if I try to run the challenge, hope everyone has started the application. It shows 159, but we have 600 students. Hope they will start it soon. But the important thing about the challenge would be that there is no specific requirement that you have to follow the specific thing required. For example, it would say that employ, for example, the blind SQL method. You can use different method also if it works. It's you have to capture the flag. That's the one thing. And the next important thing would be to go over the instruction. So I run the challenge. You can see here, does the display looks good? Once again, okay. So yeah, you can see here the challenge is being mentioned here. The important thing that I wanted to mention is that you need to go over for this module similar to the cryptography and the access control, the code. So, uh, so all the content that you have to infer would be from the code. Uh, the other things would be the standard form of telling you about what this challenge is. This would be the same thing that you would see for all the 14 challenges. So it's essential and critical that you have to go over the code for this thing. Uh, so we use the Flask to spawn the web server, and so the for the routings and other things we will use the Flask based application, and you have to go over the code to understand what this what every challenge is about, and the code will give you a idea about how to crack it. So for example, I will go over this code, and you can see here the server for this level expect an argument from the using the path argument, and if there is no path argument in that route, in the level one, being the root, uh, in the root there is it's expecting path arguments, and if it doesn't have the path argument, then it shows missing path argument. And as I mentioned, the web application, it's about the HTTP based application. So either you can use curl or Python request package, or many of them can simply be run using the browser itself. So for example, I can open the browser here. You can use the curl also. So here from the information I see that it's I'm sorry, I see that it's expecting the path parameter being supplied as an argument. So I would try what would be, and it shows that the server is expecting from challenges localhost here. So I copy this What do you expect if I didn't provide any argument? I should expect missing parameters, and you can see here the missing path parameter as per the thing. And what we expect from the challenges? Of course, you want to capture the flag. So, any idea how to crack this for someone who are yet to? I think many of them would not have started if I am correct, as only 160 have done. How can you crack the flag? And the hint is get to know about what the challenge is about. The main thing hint would be the description here and the code. Those are the only ones that guides you provide the information about the challenges. So you have to get to know about the path flag, and we know about where the flag is located. Usually the flag is located at the root folder, and we won't have the privilege to read the flag. So the permission is denied. So I expect that the challenges is about the path traversal vulnerability, in which the web application will spun the process as a root privilege, and I can try to read the flag from the root privilege. So I can supply the argument. So so this is wrong. So this is not what I'm expecting. It's not seems to be what expected it. But I see that what's the traversal path traversal attack is basically about. It's about gaining illegitimate access to the files and folders using the path traversal. So you will have the path of the websites, and the routing would be based upon the files and folder structures of the web application, and you gain access to the root using the dot slash, and then able to read the files and folder. So you can slightly get that using the same thing. I should find a way to read the flag. So you can go there, and then my guess would be to go to the root folder. So I can try to do pwd if possible. Can the pwd work? No. What about the root? So you can read. So you can see here is a directory challenge. That's for the PWT that we separate previously, I think, from the error message that we displayed previously. What would be, for example, 00/. So you can see here there is no such so I thought PWD can get executed, but it says that it's challenge PWD. So I know that it's the current directory is challenge/challenge, and it's looking for a folder or a file at PWD. So what I will do is, I know that flag is on the root folder, so I will do /flag, and you get the challenge here. So this is basically the thing of path traversal. It's not only about the capturing the flag, but also get to know about what potential that does it uh, indicates about for this vulnerability. So if I say, for example, I know that in the etc folder and then password contains not most essential password, but you can get to know about the user logins and other kind of things, some important criteria about the thing, and you can see here you can get to know about all the things from the password file. And if it's about the shadow, you can get to know the encryptor thing of the file also here. So that's a potential vulnerability. So the thing is that it has to be encoded and strictly tested for not giving access to the root from the web application working root. We call server root web application folder, server root. That's what we usually call. So from the server root, you should not be given an opportunity to escalate to the root folder. You can read all the things from the root here. So we have three challenges about so, so uh, 1 to 2 3 is about the third challenge is also about not an OS vulnerability. It's about the authentication bypass vulnerability. That means similar to the similar the indication would be using. So what do you think of the authentication would be? So in usually you will authenticate and then server will provide the cookie and at subsequent request from the browser will attach the cookie or the session ID in the cookie for every request made to the server in the subsequent calls. Uh, if it is not, if you find it to be not to be following those things, then that's a potential factor to be looked into it and see the vulnerability. So this captures this one. So probably you can see the close relation to the path traversal here. Like the user can be once found it to be the authenticated, the user can be made it to a specific route redirecting, and so we can use the kind of redirection and the traversal for the authentication bypass vulnerability. So that's not the OS vulnerability. We will not go over it, but we can see here how what's the OS vulnerability mentioned here, and then we can go over the SQL things. So I ran the challenge run. So this challenge is about the voice injection, and I can see here the challenges is about. So you have to see the read the code to know completely about the challenges. Uh, but I know that from the challenges mentioned here, it's about the command injection. So the way to extract the flag is through command injection that we saw over the slides here, in which you will chain the commands and then execute it to do whatever way that we want by means of chaining the commands and then get the privileges. So here you can see here the same thing, the time zone. It seems to be expecting the time zone with the default of UTC, and you can see here it seems to be spawning the shell with the arguments that we supply with using the time zone. So the time zone is provided as the argument to the thing. So let me check whether it works fine or not. Of course, it's running on the local host. You can use curl or Python, whichever HTTP request manageable library that you visit. So Python request, curl, or the plain browser that I'm currently using. So if I put time zone equal to MST, you can see MST here. So you can use, for example, so I will not go over the solution to retrieve the flag, but you can use, for example, whatever we saw here. So you can chain who am I to display root. Once again. Probably I can separate as the backtick that will get it executed first, and uh, you can see here. So, for example, I can see. So if I can have, do I have a word something like txt? Yeah, if I have something like a file here, I can redirect it to txt. Oh, okay. Okay, okay. Yes. Is it good now? Okay. So, so I can redirect it to a specific file and then execute it. And so, for example, you can see the so you have to read the server commands also. So, for example, my pass command has been executed successfully. It seems it has returned 200, and I think I forwarded the password here. So if I look at the here cat a.txt, it should have the password, I think. I don't know what happened. Okay, I will use a new file. I'll go over it quickly. Now, if I use, for example, a3.txt, currently there is nothing in a3.txt. It's 200. So if I read, for example, it should uh, it should display the password. I think the etc has two hyphens here. Oh, okay.
Let's see the bottom of the browser to move.
Got it. That's this one. Yes. So, so I think this has two hyphens. It shows here cat space two uh, password. Okay. Yeah, something I think it's not a big issue. I think something I miss. But you can see here, the issue could be something different here. But you can able to run the command and able to read the. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I put backslash. So you can see here something. So this is a clue that you have to retrieve for flag. That's for today. So the next one would be, yeah, similarly you can go over the bypass and then the vulnerability for the SQL type of injection. I think we went over the SQL type of injection. If we haven't, we will go over it. If not, before 1 or 2 minutes, we can go over any type of SQL injection. So that's the one type of injection for command. We know server Apache is working on Linux. So you can be able to inject, for example, here we saw that you can inject a command to the OS and then able to retrieve the information, important information from the OS. You can also inject the script. We know that server supplies the HTML and the client browser user agent displays the HTML. So you can insert, for example, a script in the client side HTML and make it display, uh, make it work in the client. So, for example, if an attacker is able to somehow inject the script, alert script into the user field, for example, and then uh, and if it get executed in the user agent, for example, the browser, you can see the alert being displayed. So this is an example of showing an alert, but you can do whatever you want using the script. So using the script, you can call the you can make the HTTP request, you can read the cookies or other kind of data being served um, inside the browser for the pertaining to the specific site that contains the useful information or important information regarding the user. We will also go over something called the same origin policy that proactively browser restricts from other parties to gain access to the resources from a different site. uh, but it shows the possibilities that you can get by injecting the script, because with the script you have the complete control because of the script and the DOM object of the browser HTML. So the browser will open the received HTML as a single document object model, and the every elements of the document object model can be controlled using the script, and we can be able to manipulate information stored or cookies if not the policy is strictly enacted to read the information about the cookies. Browser will restrict it, but as you can see here, if there is a vulnerability, it can be done just by inserting the script. So for example, the document contains the input that you provide here, and it's, for example, displayed immediately, like you can input name here and it displays hello. For example, I have to input Muhilan. Oh, okay, I'm not sure why this. Yeah. Yes. You can see here. So here the application is expecting some input from the user, and if the user enters Muhilan or something, the name, it displays hello name, for example, Muhilan. So if there is a proper sanitation has not been maintained, and if I suppose I enter similar to the OS command injection, I inject a script, for example, here the script alert, it can display an alert here. So it's simply executing the script here. What do you think would happen if I use the script to read the cookies? If there is no policy, it's possible, but the browser would restrict it. Did you get the point? So what would happen, for example, if I use the fetch API or XML HTTP request to a specific site by attaching, for example, the cookie would be available here. So it's a document object model. So I access the specific element for the information and I send it to a remote request. It's possible. So that's the gist of the script injection is about. And then we go over the SQL injection. Just now we saw that the document is the host server is able to maintain the state using storing the information persistently over the database, and it uses SQL to retrieve the query. So we can use this query. So if the server is expecting using the input field from the user as a part of the query, then you can inject these queries inside the input and able to get information from the data and other things. So that's the SQL query is basically about, and you can imagine the potential threat by being able to get access into the database. So for example, this is the, so for every user, you are storing the user and password in a simple table called users with the user column and the password column. And suppose the server is executing, filtering the user information using this command, and and if the password to retrieve the information, it gets the corner, for example, that displayed in this slide, and the password is from the user input. What do you think? It's a possibility. So the thing that we saw on the user slides previously, I think. So we can use the or, which make it the where condition to be always true. And so you can just forego without the valid password here, and you can get the information here. What else the possibility we can get? So the essentially we are negating or the possibility of checking the password by using the or conditional. So if any this condition would make it true, and so we forego the password verification, and you can make it as severe as dropping the table, deleting the data, updating the wrong value, and other thing else. So you can just imagine how bad it could be because of this one. So we will just quickly go over what could be possible in the database. So the three next three levels would be SQL query uh, based challenges. You can see here, exploit a structured query language injection vulnerability to login. Let me see. As I mentioned, uh, upon capture also, I would suggest you to think about the ways that it can have an impact after capturing the flag also. So I would see that you would be able to capture the flag not exactly as mentioned with a strategy that is explained here, uh, possibly through some other means also, but you can think of the possible way of threat that can happen, possible impact that the threat can make for this issue. So, for example, if I see challenge run, the information has to be read only using the code. You can see here, it's getting the table with the parameters of the username and password, possibly so it's for the parameters for the username and password, it's applying the flag uh, as the user, and then it checks the post method, so it saves the flag uh, as a password and the username as a flag string, and then it checks the post method. And if it doesn't get the post method with the form of username field and the password field, it poses the error message. Otherwise, you can see here, it retrieves using the username for the row, and then it simply redirect to the specific path, and that path it shows the username and password. So, what I said about this can be employed or not is that you can use, for example, the OR condition that we just now saw to forego the verification of the password, or else, if not, you can directly go to the redirect and check for it and retrieve the password. So that's the hint. We will not go over it for today. But essentially, you would be using either the OR condition, or after the redirect, does it checks for the authentication, or else can I quickly go over the specific endpoint and read the flag directly using the endpoint. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So we have 5 more minutes. So the SQL injection is the big thing and a big topic. uh, Apart from the thing that we mentioned here, there are different type of SQL injection, like the blind SQL injection, in which you would not be able to retrieve what is happening behind the queries, and you have to adapt a strategy. And then we just now saw about the union method. If you can union, and then, so for example, if this is about retrieving the password, and then there is also another thing that contains the information about, for example, their SQL number, or their bank details number, uh, so their account number. So that column can also be retrieved using the union method of that we saw for the SQL method. So that kind of injection is specifically called union injection type, and then the timed SQL injection type. And so the challenges have one type for union method, and the blind SQL based method. And we can also use the stack injection also, like you might be aware of the previous uh, modules that we went over for reverse engineering and the assembly language. You can smash the stack, and then override the return address, and then make it to return to your own address here. So here, for the bar in which it stores here, you can smash it such that the return address that's stored in the stack for here has been overwritten the with our own data, and we can manipulate the return address. So that's basically stack injection, but it's not so popular as the cross-site injection or the SQL injection or the OS injection that we saw. The OS injection and the SQL injection that we saw is the server type attack injection, and the cross-site injection that we will go over the next slide would be the client-side based attack that we can make it vulnerable by manipulating from the client side. Let me go over. We have 5 more minutes more. Uh, I can go over the thing. So the next challenges basically is it's about leak data. With you can, after reading the code, you can get to know about how to leak the data, possibly by the endpoints and the redirect, and the unknown data structure. So you have to get to know about the data structure, possibly using schema or other things. Uh, so next four challenges would be around the SQL injection type, and then we will go over the next through cross-site injection. So for example, this would be, oh yeah, got it. Thanks. Any queries with the challenges? Did you find anything after starting to be somewhat? Yeah, the crucial thing I would say is that keep note of the name that's provided here, and then you have to go over the code that will provide the details about how to get the flag. That's sufficient enough to provide all the details by going over the code and also reading about the title here. So for example, this is about the leaking the data, and going over the challenges would provide you how to, sorry, go over it. So you can see here we are creating a row with the flag and the password as the flag value, and then we are querying and with like. So this provides you an opportunity like you have to retrieve the flag which is stored as a password, and it's joining the username by executing the query that is supplied in the HTTP request using the parameters. So the usual expectation is the username. Can I make this query such that using the SQL type of attack, can I make it to reveal the password also, which we just now overwent using different type of attacks, different type of categories of SQL attack. You can make it to reveal the password also. So the next would be the final lecture, I think, because probably we may start for the next Tuesday the binary exploitation. But for the next Thursday, we will go over the cross-site vulnerabilities. That includes the cross-site forgery also. So, for example, request forgery, which usually you can use probably for stealing the bank data or other things. But all of them could be related to the client side attack using cross-site scripting. It's a common term. There is no specific definition for this cross-site scripting, but different methods that can be handled from the client side uh, to to make it vulnerable, to exploit the vulnerable and make it malicious. Thank you for the things. Let me know if you have any queries. If there is no queries, I can end the call. Thank you.